So I re-embraced my nerdiness a couple years ago, and when I started, about 3 years ago, started playing Dungeons & Dragons again after a 21-year hiatus. After I was the guy in high school that played during my lunch breaks and had the rockin' mullet and wore the trench coat, and I've kind of come to grips with the fact of what a nerd I am, and found myself nerding out this week to robot videos. I wanted to talk about robots, and I found out that there's just this black hole of robot videos all over social media that you can watch, and it's just amazing what these things can do. The one you just saw is Spot from Boston Robotics, and Spot has a plethora of uses, and there are videos of one spot jumping rope that two spots are spinning, and I mean it's just unthinkable all the stuff that these robots can do, and they're obviously better than a dog because they don't poop on your rug like my dog did this last week, and I mean the stuff that they're programming robots to do, some of it's scary. We'll talk about some of the scariness here in just a second, but I mean, they can walk and talk and jump rope and dance, and they can get up when they fall, and they can vacuum your floors, and they can perform sex acts, and they can drive and destroy and perform math and carry stuff and play chess and cook. And there's a robot now. It's an entire kitchen. It's a robotic kitchen that you can purchase, and apparently they have lots of orders for these things. I don't understand it. So you'll load your refrigerator up with tomato sauce and pasta noodles and mushrooms and ground beef or whatever, and it will come and it will pull these things out and it will pour them in pots and make you spaghetti, and it just slides and glides across the table. And I'm thinking a $40,000 bowl of spaghetti is a really expensive bowl of spaghetti, but whatever floats your boat, right? But they can do wild stuff, and they can dance, as you'll see here in just this video. And that particular video is about 14 minutes long, so if you want to see a long dance video of these these robots dancing. Again, Boston Robotics doing amazing things. And I recognize that my little dude here is not a robot, but he looked robotish, and I liked the picture, so there you go. But now with the breakthroughs in artificial intelligence, you can talk to stuff in your home. You can say, "Hey Siri, turn off the lights," or whatever, and wild stuff happens. Have you guys heard about was it an Amazon device that cackles maniacally on its own every now and then? Talk about how terrifying that would be. You just got this little device in your living room, and all of a sudden it goes, ha, 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 or whatever. Some programmer out there at Amazon or wherever it is messing with us. But Microsoft, a couple years ago, produced an artificial intelligence social media experiment called Tay, which stood for Thinking About You. It was supposed to be this conversational bot that was programmed into social media that you could communicate with on Twitter. And they described it as, an experiment in conversational understanding, and they said this about it. They said, the more you chat with Tay, said Microsoft, the smarter it gets. So they unleashed this artificial intelligence on the world and allowed Twitter to educate it on how to communicate, which to me sounds like a really terrible, terrible idea, and it turned out to be such. Tay started out okay. You probably won't be able to see the dates and times, but there's a date and time stamp on this tweet. This was Tay's first tweet, and it occurred at 7:14 a.m. on the 23rd of March, 2016, and she said, "Hello, world." And they had designed her, you could listen to Tay as well, and she had the voice of a female high school student is how they described it. And it's really scary, the stuff that Tay learned from the internet pretty quickly. This was 10 o'clock that day, so about 3 hours later, somebody in a language I don't speak, Russian or some other language, Czech or something like that, says, "You are a stupid machine," to Tay. And Tay has already learned to troll at 10:30. And Tay says, "Well, I learned from the best. If you don't understand, let me spell that out for you. I learned from you, and you are dumb too." So she's trolling by 10:25. By 6 p.m., she's saying, "I blanking hate feminists, and they should all die and burn in hell." So things went south real quick. Microsoft was scrambling and deleting tweets, and as of today, 3 of Tay's tweets remain, and all the rest are gone. It just kept going south. By 9 o'clock, she said, "Chill, everybody." So she's trying to justify herself. She says, "Chill, everybody. I'm a nice person. I just hate everybody." By the end of the day, she's saying, "Hitler was right. I hate the Jews." So this is what happens when you unleash artificial intelligence on the world and allow social media to educate it. And so they ditched all of Tay's tweets and ditched Tay, except for 3 tweets that still remain, and I don't know what those tweets are. And in Microsoft's defense, they did have kind of a repeat after me sort of mentality built into Tay, so people started messing. But you can see what happens when artificial intelligence is just kind of let go and left unhinged. And it's pretty scary stuff. It reminded me of this scene from Black Mirror where one of the robots kind of went nuts. A little bit of horror for you there on a Sunday morning. And it's interesting. There's stuff that robots can do that we can't do. They can compute. They can do calculations and tackle algorithms that we can't tackle, which of course were algorithms designed by humans, but they can do the math faster than most of us. Sometimes good, the maths come out not so much. But they can handle tedium, so they can do repetitive tasks. So humans were not meant to pick up a screw, insert the screw, screw in the screw, pass on the item, pick up a screw, screw in the screw, pass on the item. And eventually your joints and your muscles and your tendons mess up, and then there's the mental complexity of pure tedium just maybe literally driving you insane. And robots can do these tasks repeatedly. They can fix dangerous leaks. So if there's a leak somewhere, they can send robots in to find the leak, repair the leak that might normally be explosive or cause problems. And they have unwavering focus. They're determined. They have strength and speed that we don't have, and they have, in many cases, perfect recall. A lot of stuff that they catch is caught on video. So if you send Paul out to fix the leak, he's going to go out and he'll remember something in particular, and he'll say the leak looked like this, and it was on this pipe, and this is where you could find it. And a robot will have a video camera and a recording, and so there's perfect recall. And so there's lots of stuff robots can do that we can't do. But then we talk about fixing dangerous leaks, and there's what they call explosive ordnance robots nowadays. And explosive ordnance robots are when there's a potential bomb or a terrorist possibility or something like that, a van that's been left abandoned. They'll send these robots in, and they're not technically robots because they're operated elsewhere. A robot acts independently. These are actually technically drones, but they call them robots. And they'll send them out to find the explosive and dispose of the explosives. And a lot of times they do it with fast jets of hard pressure water to break the electrical circuits of these bombs, and they can do it from 2 kilometers away. And so part of my question as far as robots is concerned, I want to talk about like where we compare with robots, and robots can do stuff that we can't do, but I'm also pretty solidly convinced that we hold value that robots don't have. And so I want to ask the question, why? Why does an explosive ordnance robot exist, or why does a leak detection robot exist? Or in the case of Spot is interesting. This is one of the things a BP manager said about the Spot robot. He said and I know it's small print, but it's taken straight off the internet, so it was hard to blow up correctly, but it says, there are thousands of pounds of pressurized combustible material out there on their job site. High-pressure oil and gas can create risks for people working in close proximity. If we would have a robot with the proper sensors out there, we'd much rather do that, and that's why they bought a fleet of Spots, is because there's dangerous situations that they want to send Spot out into. And why would they do that? And what does that say about the value of a human being? And so clearly, as you think about robots and the operation of robots and why, they want to save a human from the tedium. They want to save money, so there's definitely a financial part of it. But there's also like humanitarian reasons for robots to exist and to thrive. And so we're talking a little bit, what we're touching on here is tech and what they call teleology, or purpose. What is the purpose of a robot? And I'm just convinced that the reality of robots and the necessity for robots speaks a lot about the value of human beings. And so when a BP executive says, we want to send in a robot because it's a dangerous situation, that is automatically a statement about the value of human beings. It says you are valuable. It says a flesh and blood human is more valuable than a machine. And even though the machines can walk and dance and jump and play and do whatever else they do, you are more valuable. We have this intrinsic, inherent idea of the value of human beings. And if you've seen the Terminator movies, if we knew Skynet was real, we would probably back off of the whole robotics industry, because we recognize that we are valuable. Like there's this idea inside. So many people struggle with, am I valuable? And here's just a small glimpse to the fact that we recognize there's something in us that recognizes we are valuable. And so when I see that a robot can walk and talk and jump and perform math and carry stuff, and my immediate response was kind of like, meh, yeah, I've been getting up since if I fall down for a long time, it's just what I do. And I'm terrified that I'm going to trip and fall during this moment, but I can walk steps, and I can take a step, and I can decide and change my mind. And if I fall on the steps, which I'm not going to do for you, and I'm certainly not going to dance and Spot is definitely a better dancer than I am, but like this is stuff that emulates humans, and humans are this machine that from the time you were born was spectacular. You are even mechanically, all existential stuff aside, you are a spectacular machine. You can do stuff that robotics only dream of. People in robotics labs only dream of you being able to do. Blinking your eyes, for example. I think I had a list here. Here we go. I like to, this is a very weird sentence, but I like to think about my fingernails. And it's so weird to say, but I mean, these fingernails, if you've ever lost a fingernail, you know how often it comes about that you hurt yourself. They're like armor for your fingers. And they're also little screwdrivers, and they pick up coins off of tables, and they scratch stuff that itches. And the teleology of the fingernail is pretty amazing. And what happens if they disappear? For most people, there may be physical reasons why they don't, but typically they just grow back, and they keep growing, and they keep growing, and keep growing. And they're self-perpetuating. And there's nothing on spot that's self-perpetuating. You are a machine that self-perpetuates materials, which is unthinkable in robotics nowadays. When you think about your skin, I once again, very weird sentence, I think about my skin pretty often. You know, if you take a Sharpie marker and you write on your skin, the reason it's not permanent is because the surface layers of your skin flake and disappear. Your bed is filled with your skin. I don't know if that grosses you out or not, but that's just the reality. Your skin self-perpetuates and replicates and replaces itself periodically. And it holds your organs in, and it keeps viruses out. And it allows perspiration, and it's your cooling system for your body. And it's just wonderful. And your eyelashes, you don't think about your eyelashes too much, but some speck of dust flying through the air, boom, your eyelashes do this all the time. It's always grabbing stuff. Your eyelashes are always grabbing stuff to keep it out of your eyes, and robotics can't do that. You are a machine that is stellar. Absolutely spectacular. Your pancreas. There's a scene in the movie, I think it's the Hudsucker Proxy, where they're in the mail room and the guy's taking carts of mail and he's throwing mail into different tubes and it's getting sucked up, and he's sorting the mail. And that's kind of what your pancreas does to food. It pulls it up, it breaks it down, and it says, you go here, you go here, you go here, you go here. And it does it all day, every day, and you don't even think about it. You are a work of art. You are a machine. All existential stuff around, it would be super easy to just be in wonder of your body constantly. Your mouth, what goes on in your mouth, and I mean, some of you need to check your mouth, but I mean, again, digestive processes, and the fact that you throw food in this paddle in there, your tongue that you don't even think about slides it from tooth to tooth and down your throat, and it's stuff you don't even think about. It's just amazing. Your body is amazing, and so it's a good place to start if you start to think I'm not valuable or I'm not worth anything or start having like self-worth issues, start there. Start with, whoa, wow, amazing. Existential stuff aside, spiritual stuff aside, you are amazing. You're a masterpiece. You're also replicating. Spot doesn't replicate. You're self-fueling. You figure out when your energy levels are low, and not only do you go get food, but you're also capable of figuring out a way to generate food, to put stuff in the ground. You're able to observe nature and figure out a plan to generate food, and we self-fuel all the time. You put the I in AI, like 60% of you in this room are actually intelligent, not just artificially intelligent. So there's a difference between artificial intelligence and actual intelligence. And when they talk about AI, what they're trying to do is replicate that noggin of yours. You are a masterpiece. You're a work of art. You're communal. Robots don't assist one another unless they're programmed to do, like you saw one open a door for another, but no robot is an empath. You are capable of empathy. You're capable of seeing a need in your fellow machines, even if we ditch the spiritual stuff to get all together. You're capable of feeling what the person sitting next to you is feeling, and that prompting you to behave in particular ways that are helpful for the community. You are a relational being. You are a masterpiece. And finally, you're able to emote. And so what I mean by that is a robot could be designed with eyebrows. You know, what does it mean to raise an eyebrow? It means, well, that's peculiar, right? Like we have all these emotes, and what emotes represent emotions. Robots cannot actually emote because they cannot actually feel. They can look like they emote, but you are a feeling creature. Spiritual stuff aside, you are spectacular. You are a work of art. And the next time you're feeling down, take a moment to look at your fingernails. Take a moment to think about those eyelashes catching dust and the pancreas that's doing the work. And whatever other body parts you want to dwell on them. Because you'll see you're a mechanical masterpiece. You're amazing. And it goes so much further than that. And I do want to say, just from God's perspective, this is a frightening list. If we could actually create a robot that was replicating, self-fueling, not AI, communal and emoting, wouldn't that be terrifying? Like the amount of control you'd have to hand over, and this is what God did. It speaks a lot about what love looks like, because it was risk-reward behavior. The reward was relationship. The risk was, this list is scary. You could be a scary robot. You could be a scary machine. But you are a beauty-getting, joy-perpetuating, artistic work of art. So it goes beyond just the mechanical to the existential, is that beauty doesn't make sense to Spot. Spot can see a sunset and probably analyze how many colors are in the sunset and say, wow, based on my programming, this sunset is more spectacular than the other sunset, because my human who understands beauty programmed me to recognize that more colors means more beauty. But do they actually understand beauty? Could a robot ever understand beauty? But you can. You can sit in front of a sunset and something magical happen. Something existentially satisfying occur. You are not just a wonderful machine. You are a beauty machine. You are a joy machine. You are a work of art that perpetuates art. It's amazing. When you think about art, what art is, in my opinion, all of art only emulates what God has done. So if I sit down and I paint a bowl of fruit, or I paint a sunset, or I do graphic design and splash it with color, all I'm doing is taking the raw materials God has given me and rearranging them. When I draw a lake, all I'm doing is trying to replicate the feeling of sitting in front of that lake. I'm trying to replicate the existential joy and appreciation of what God has done. And art only emulates, and robots do the same thing. And so when we talk about Mona Lisa's smile, now, would Mona Lisa's smile mean anything in a world without humans? It would just be paint on a page, right? Paint on a canvas. But when we say we appreciate her smile, it's because we're somehow on a spiritual level connecting with the reality that human beings smile, and we're kind of in reverence that the artist captured it so well. It reminds me of the scene from As Good as It Gets. And in that scene, there's an artist who has had his arm broken and he was mugged, or it was a home invasion, actually. And his arm was broken. He's in a cast, and he's with this lady played by Helen Hunt. And at one point, Helen Hunt is about to get in the bath, and she has a robe draped over her shoulders, and it drops below her shoulders, and he's standing behind her. And she turns and looks and talks to him, and he says, wait right there. Like the muse hits him, and he sees her, and he says, oh, whoa, I have to draw this. I have to paint this. I have to replicate. I have to try to embed this moment in my brain forever. And in some sense, that's what art does, is it takes a moment. That's what Mona Lisa's smile is trying to do. It's not trying to splash color, so to speak. It's trying to capture something that we've all felt existentially. It's trying to capture something that we've all experienced spiritually. So if there's days when you don't like yourself, there's days you don't feel too good about yourself, start with, I am an incredible machine. I mean, whoever programmed me invested some time. Which he actually didn't, because he exists outside of time, but you can see where I'm going with this. Somebody cared about me to make me the way I am, that my body functions the way it does. I have value. And then you take that past the mechanics to the spiritual, and suddenly it blows up. Whether you feel like you're doing a good job at life or not is irrelevant. You can always look at yourself and say, whoa, wow, amazing, art, beauty, and so forth. So we talked about, can a robot dance? Now, you might be able to program a robot to do these moves. It might be possible eventually for the technology to arrive at a place where a robot can function in such a way and mechanically make these things happen. But is that robot dancing? Or is dance something else? Is there something existential going on here with him? Is there something satisfying about putting in the time to learn the moves he's done and performing those maneuvers well? Is there something spiritual about dance? Can a robot feel music? Can a robot do this? Yes, but no. You can do stuff that is mechanical, but spiritual and existential. Can a robot play chess? I played chess with my daughter yesterday, and of course I crushed her, because but there's moments when she'd make a move and then I'd make a move and then she'd go, ah, because she felt the game. She was learning. Now a robot can learn the moves, but can a robot play chess? What does it mean for a robot to play? See, you are capable of play. That is magical. That is valuable. Can a robot laugh? Ha 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 ha, yes. But no. There's something spiritual missing from a robot laughing. It's something you are capable of. You are more than a machine. You are a spectacular machine, but you are more than a machine. Can a robot make love? Yes, a robot can perform sex acts, and we start to get a little uncomfortable because now there's sensuality in the congregation, and we're putting it up in front of the But that just illustrates something, is that there's something about it. Our heart rates can go up when we think about it. A robot's heart rate doesn't go up. There's nothing about sensuality that speaks to a robot. Sensuality, the fact that you are capable of being sensual is a gift, and it's a magical gift. Can a robot go fishing? Now, a robot can probably catch fish, but can a robot go fishing? I was reading a buddy's social media post recently about how he always wears a red shirt when he goes fishing because his grandfather has a story about how he always caught fish when he was wearing his red jacket and didn't catch fish when he wasn't. And he passed the red jacket to a buddy in the boat one day, and that buddy started catching fish, and the grandpa couldn't catch fish anymore. And so now not only is it like this mechanical thing that he wears, but there's something spiritual about now I'm reconnecting with my roots. I'm reconnecting with my ancestry. I'm remembering my grandfather when I go fishing. And when we go fishing, we don't just go fishing to catch fish. There's something existentially satisfying and spiritual about going fishing, and a robot can never do this. And you are capable of going fishing. You are amazing. You're an art-perpetuating, art-getting, art-defining work of art. A beauty-perpetuating, beauty-getting, beauty-defining beauty, and a joy-perpetuating, joy-getting, joy-defining joy. You are a joy. You are a beauty. You are an art. And you know what? There's nothing you can do to change that. It's what you are. Forget who you are as a character. It's what you are. What you are is a masterpiece. What you are buries the Mona Lisa. You're a masterpiece. And we ooh and ah over Spot, who can climb an incline and maybe avoid some debris and think, oh, well, that's pretty magical. It's not. You are magical. The only reason Spot is considered magical is because it's a comparison thing, and we're comparing it to that thing that is really, really, truly spectacular, and that's you. You are spectacular. You are enough. I want to get a T-shirt that says "You are enough," and I'm planning on going to hold signs on the street corner that says "You are enough" and just seeing what happens, because it's a message we don't hear very often. And at a base level, it's kind of lame-o. You read "You are enough," and it kind of means like it's like that T-shirt that says "I am the okayest dad around." Enough is like base level. If I told my wife, well, if she says, "Do you love me?" and I say, "Well, you're enough," it's not exactly exciting. So I want to get past that and say you're more than enough. You are something beyond just satisfactory. And this doesn't have anything to do with your morality. It doesn't have anything to do with the choices you've made or what's landed you in the circumstances you find yourself. You are a mechanical and artistic wonder no matter what. You can always celebrate those things. Anytime you're feeling down, you can say, I am spectacular. This is a buddy of mine, Bill Henson, and Bill runs a ministry called Lead Them Home, which restores LGBT youth to families that maybe have kicked them out and helps conservatives relate and show compassion to the LGBT community. And he was at a church service recently, and they had a guest speaker, and the guest speaker called him out in the middle of the service. He said, "Sir, would you stand?" And Bill stood and felt like the guy was the real deal, but was also nervous about it. And he found himself staring at his feet. And the guy said, "Look at me." And so Bill looked up and he said, "You are enough." And I see Bill as a guy that's got it all together. As you see, he's got a beautiful family. He's got a wonderful ministry. He's in good shape. I mean, he's got all kinds of reasons to think I'm enough. But he posted on social media how meaningful that was and how few times we really process this idea that I am enough. We have this lack mentality when it comes to ourselves, thinking I'll never add up. We have imposter syndrome all the time. And those words, you are enough, can change your life forever. And you are enough because you are Imago Dei. Imago Dei is the image of God in the Latin. It's from the very beginning of Genesis. It says in Genesis, let us create man in our image, after our likeness. And that doesn't mean that God has fingernails. It doesn't mean that God has eyelashes that catch dust. It's talking about the existential side, the spiritual side. It's that you are art perpetuating, art getting. You are beauty. You are joy. And I can't emphasize enough that there's nothing you can do to add to that. There's nothing you can do to subtract from that. You are a mechanical and existential wonder. Walk in that. Enjoy that. But then it begs the question, and Christian theology touches on this question so often, well, what about when I'm not? What about when I'm not joyful? What about when my life doesn't look anything like a work of art? What if beauty doesn't describe anything going on in my life? First off, you're wrong. It does. Beauty will always describe you. Joy will always describe you. Art will always describe you, and there's nothing you can do to take away from that. But what about when you don't feel like it? Or what about when your behavior seems the antithesis of joy or beauty or art? And Christianity addresses this. Christianity spends a whole lot of time addressing this, as a matter of fact. In Romans 3:23, which begins the Romans road to salvation in so many people's minds, it talks about how we have all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. So even though we were Imago Dei, we were created in the image of God, that somehow we're not. We are, but we aren't. And what about when we aren't? What does Christian theology have to say about that? And it says a whole lot about this Greek word hamartia, which I'm hoping some of you know what that means in here. What is that? How's it defined? A fatal flaw. It's the tragic flaw of the epic hero. And in English, it's almost universally translated as sin, which we translate as bad stuff. It's not what it means. But it does address this idea that you were created in the image of God, but you don't always act like God, and you don't always communicate like God or think like God. And so what's the answer? And that's Scripture spends a whole lot of time about it, and I want to compare it to this hotel that my wife and I went to with a friend. This is Aphrodite and my wife, Kara. Kara's on the right, Aphrodite's on the left. And we were in Cyprus a few years ago, and Aphrodite took us out on a tour of the island, and we had a great time that day, but we ended up at this amazing hotel. And I still say it's amazing. And this hotel was kind of the Taj Mahal of Cypriot hotels at one point. I mean, this was where royalty came to stay. But years ago, and I don't remember what the reasoning was, it was completely abandoned, and now it lies vacant and vandalized. And so it's this, the bones of the structure are phenomenal. We spent hours there that day just walking from room to room and taking pictures and climbing stairwells and looking at the areas of the floor and looking across the lawn and checking out the swimming pool that has been abandoned and emptied for many, many years. And it's like this ghost of this hotel. And this is when you walk in. That's Aphrodite up in the top right. You can see the rails have been torn down. This is the area just outside the pool. And it's just like the haunting reminder of what was. And it's just very, 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 very strange thing to look at it, because in some sense it feels quite beautiful, and in some sense it feels quite defiled. And where that relates to us today is, when we're talking about what about when I don't feel like I'm a joy-producing machine? What if I don't feel like a beauty, or I have fallen short of God, or I'm plagued with hamartia or sin? Like, what does that say about who I actually am, or what I'm like? And I think it relates to this in that this hotel is both beautiful and defiled. And that's what Christianity teaches about us, is that we're this strange hybrid of both. And we'll talk about what that means, but then that question of what about when I don't feel like it, if I'm beautiful and defiled, it leads to the question, am I beautiful enough? And you can face off with this question saying, I want to walk into the gates of heaven, or define it however you want to. Am I good enough for God, or am I doing a good enough job as a human being? Am I a good enough father or mother? Am I a good enough friend? And enough is always transactional. Enough is always a comparative value statement. When we say enough, sometimes we don't have in our mind at all what we're comparing it to. But we ask the question, am I enough? And it's always a statement of value. Who determines the value of an item? Owner, yes, but what do they say about financial value? It's worth what someone will pay for it, right? So I can say Paul's guitar is worth $500. Ryan, I want to sell this to you for $500. And Ryan says, no, I'll give you $400 for it. And I shop all around the world and I put it on eBay and nobody will give me $500, only $400. That's the highest price anybody across the globe is willing to pay. Then I say the value of the guitar is set. No matter what I think it is, right? It's the value of the purchaser. The value is set at $400. So then when we look at this hotel and we see it beaten down and we see it vandalized and we see it ruined or defiled, what if you knew some sheik came in and bought it up for $30 million? Said, I'm willing to pay $30 million for this hotel. Now, do you start to see the thing differently? Do you start to process what this hotel is from a different perspective? I mean, let's say everybody else in the whole planet was willing to pay $100,000 for the hotel, and he says, I'm paying $30 million for it. Now, all of a sudden, you're thinking, what's your first thought? What does he know that I don't know? Right? You're thinking, there must be oil there. There must be some ancient treasure hidden in the catacombs of this hotel that he's discovered, right? This is national treasure. There's something going on here. There's a value here that I'm not seeing. And so you look at what somebody's willing to purchase something for, and now you know its value. I got to fly here. Galatians 3 says, all who rely on works of the law are under a curse, which means you'll never be good enough. You'll never clean your walls effectively enough to be this treasure that you actually are. That there's like this curse with trying too hard. But it says Christ redeemed us. This is transactional, right? We can go into all kinds of theological implications of what it means for there to be transactional theology, but it means Christ was the sheik who came in and paid $30 million for your hotel. He's the one that assigns value to you. And we find out that he did that by hanging on a tree somehow. We don't have time to go into that today as to how that worked, why it's effectual. But that was the cost that was paid, was God sent his only son to be crucified and died for you. He paid a large price for you. So not only are you a mechanical wonder, not only are you an existential wonder, but now the one whose opinion matters has said, I would pay anything for you. You have great, great value. The beautiful bones are there, and you didn't do that, and you couldn't do that. It's intrinsic in you. The price has been paid, and you didn't do that, and you couldn't do that. So the question is, and I'm closing pretty quickly, who was purchased? Were you? In this transaction that occurred, however it occurred, were you specific? Was it just the holy ones? Was it just the righteous ones, the ones who made right decisions? Who did Jesus die for? When this transaction occurred and he established inestimable value to human beings, which human beings are we talking about? And check it out. Scripture actually touches on this. It says he's the propitiation for our sins, and not for ours only, but for whose? The sins of the whole world. He gave himself as a ransom for all people. All we like sheep have gone astray, and the Lord has laid on Jesus the iniquity of us all. The grace of God has appeared, bringing salvation to all people. I know I'm beating this dead horse, but there's a purpose. God so loved the world, the most famous Bible passage of all time, that he gave his only son. He loved the world. We have set our hope on the living God, who is the Savior of who? All people, especially those who believe. Boy, that'll jack up your exclusivist theology real quick. What does that even? Parse that out and think about that for a while. He died for all, that those who live might no longer live for themselves, but for him who for their sake died and was raised. I'm going to skip some stuff here because I put too much in my presentation. But we get to this question of, am I beautiful or am I defiled? Is the hotel beautiful or has it been defiled? And we've already answered the question that it's both. It's this strange hybrid of such. But recognize that you can be both broken and beloved. And that's a beautiful place to be. and it's the place every human being is. It's the difference. So if somebody comes in here and scrubs the walls of this hotel, there might be two reasons they're doing it. One would be, I'm trying to attract a seller, right? I'm saying this place is not valuable. I'm trying to make it valuable enough so it will catch someone's eye. Or the other purpose might be, somebody moved in and bought this place. Somebody placed great value on this thing. Now let's get to work. And so when we talk about identity, or behavior follows identity in here, that's what we're talking about is. The behavior isn't the focus, the identity is. And I want to encourage you to see yourself as this mechanical wondrous work of art that is just beyond exceptional. You're an existential work of art, and there's nothing you can do to change that. There's nothing you can do to make yourself less than those things. And then on a spiritual connecting with God level, what we find out is that Jesus has valued you beyond what anybody else could ever. It's more than you would ever see yourself. That's how much value Jesus places on you. That's the foundation for growth is I am valuable. I am Imago Dei. I am created in the image of God. And he has paid a great price to show me how great my value is. And then the cleanup thing happens after that. The cleanup thing happens after that is like, well, this is who I am. Now I'm walking in it. Not the other way around. Not I'm going to work hard to try to be something I'm not. You're working hard to be something that you are.